And welcome back, regular knife people, to another episode of the Regular Guys Knife Channel. Uh, Hopefully the audio is going to be a little bit better on this video for you guys. I I finally stopped buying the $20 Amazon mics, and I upgraded here to to hopefully what's going to be a decent mic, right? Because I'm filming on my iPhone, and so I'm kind of restricted to the type of cameras, right, or type of mics that I can use. So all the going like through the Google there and looking for the top 10 best video mics. None of them will work with the iPhone. So hopefully we got a good one here, and hopefully this audio is a bit better for you guys, right? I know it's kind of a struggle for me to watch my own videos with the audio, knowing that it's kind of crummy. So yeah, you guys can see here set before you, or under you, I guess, depending on the camera angle. You know, I got my sharpening set up, or at least part of my sharpening setup, right? If you don't know, this is a TS Prof. It is the Kadet model. This one specifically is the Kadet Nero. You know, when it came time for me to upgrade from the Edge Pro, I'd finally had scratched my last knife on the Edge Pro, and I just couldn't bring myself to use it, you know, anymore. It was a good system. It's a fantastic system, you know, in the beginning, because it was really the first major system out there on the market that would use the 1 inch by 6 inch stones, and it kind of, you know, it spawned an industry, right? There's all kinds of different, sharpening setups out there. But to me, at least in my mind, they're just the drawbacks with the Edge Pro. Just were too many. There were just too many new systems out there. TS Prof being probably one of the better knowns. You know, they have a heavy presence on YouTube. They sent out a bunch of free units to different knife channels to review for them. So there's a pretty decent community around these things. So you know, it's easy to you know, it's easier to go where others have gone before, right? They've worked out the bugs and the kinks before you, and so you don't have to deal with them. And this is just one of those things I just didn't want to have to put a whole bunch of thought into, right? I just wanted to sharpen my damn knives. I didn't want to have to, you know, re-engineer the thing. You know, the Edge Pro, like I said, was a decent sharpener, but man, there was, you know, there was a big evolution of mods on it to really get it to hum. And you know, its drawbacks, like you having to actually hold the blade on the sharpening shelf there. I found that just, you know, after three or 8 beers, it was pretty easy to not pay attention and start being a little inconsistent with it. Also, the fact that you had to literally tape everything up with painter's tape, you know, double thick to ensure you didn't scratch the knife. The actual body of the Edge Pro is a plastic, and grit and metal particles like to get embedded in it, and over time it turns into, the surface of it's like an 80 grit piece of sandpaper, and you're just gonna scratch the hell out of your knives. So yeah, so upgraded, went with the TS Prof. I picked this guy up right after the Nero came out, so probably 4 or 5 months before the before the Kadet Pro came out, which is fine. You know, from all I can tell, the only big difference between the Nero and the Pro was that the Pro's got that rack and pinion adjuster for blade angle. I don't mind it the way it is now. I mean, you know, with the stone compensation, you know, being so quick and easy, or, you know, compensating for the stone thicknesses being so quick and easy, And I really only ever sharpen to 2 angles, anyways, right? 20 degrees for all my heavier duty stuff, 17 for my lighter stuff, and all Spydercos, they all get 20 degrees because that's what the Spyderco SharpMaker comes set, to sharpen is a 20 degree edge. So yeah, so all my knives, they go, we sharpen them. I sharpen them to most of them get a 20 degree edge, at least my heavier duty stuff. There's, yeah, I mean, I guess if I was really into cutting performance, I'd come up with an angle of my own, but those are really the only 2 angles I sharpen to. So yeah, so I got me the TS Prof. I got the Kadet Nero, which is a slight upgrade over the original Kadet. Not just the fancy black color. They set it up to use the KO3 style blade holders. So yeah, it works really well. Some of the drawbacks to it were that it was made to be kind of more of a lighter weight portable unit, and it easily achieved that, right? Spot on, right? But because it is a lighter unit, to keep it kind of from moving around on the desk, you find yourself with your left hand holding it down, and that works fine, and it's just fine. It's just I like to do my finish polishing with natural stones, which do require some water, and having that cold water dripping on the back of my hand was a little obnoxious. So I needed to come up with something better, and I needed to add some weight, and I knew initially going into this that was going to be a problem, or could possibly be an issue. Some of the reviewers had stated that the lightness of the unit did make it want to kind of get squirrely and move around a little bit, and so I just kind of I rigged this thing up here, what you see it mounted to. So it's a 1/4 inch 12 by 12 piece of mild steel, welded on a couple big thick pieces of angle on the back here to act as kind of a holder here, and welded some steel tubing in it. And so what I do is I put my little bottles of gunny juice back there. My water goes back there. I hold the little 4 millimeter wrench for loosening the stuff up, loosening the blade holders up. And then I use that outboard tool. When I'm not using this, I can actually take the stone guide off and stand it up in there, and it gives it a bit more of a compact footprint here on my bench. So everything's threaded. It's all threaded 11 millimeter, and I did that primarily because I wanted a good set of leveling feet for it. And getting leveling feet and finger bolts or thumb nuts here, getting them all in the same size, so I only had to use one tap was kind of a challenge. I really wanted to go with 1/4 by 20 because I already own a baker's dozen 1/4 by 20 taps, and that would have made life a little bit simpler. The problem I had was getting a set of decent leveling feet in 1/4 by 20, just not possible, right? They're either absolute junk or at $60 a pair, and I wasn't going to pay $60 a pair for leveling feet. I mean, this whole base setup here cost me, to include the price of an 11 millimeter tap, I think $50, right? And so I didn't want to buy a set of $50 feet. The main reason I wanted the leveling feet is, depending on the surface I put it, I kind of had the idea in my head that I could make this thing mobile, and so depending on the surfaces I sat it down on, I didn't want it to be uneven. Plus, not knowing, because you are using, you are setting angles, I wanted to be able to level the unit itself, whether or not the surface that it was sitting on was level. And so by having these feet with these knobs on top, I can go ahead and using my angle finder here, I can go ahead and level this base out and start from a level field, when I'm starting to take my blade angle measurements and stuff like that. And so that was the big reason for the feet. Are they necessary? Probably not. I probably could have just glued a piece of felt to the base of it, and it'd have been fine. It is kind of convenient, though, that it does lift the base up a little bit, because when I am done with it and I'm storing it, I'm putting it over in the corner of my desk. I'm sure you can see it in the upper left-hand corner of my other videos. I can slide the stone tray up underneath it, and so you know, it just makes for a bit more of a compact setup. Um, so yeah, just, you know, a couple holes drilled, just a piece of steel, some angle. In fact, I think this is some used or leftover metal bed frame, and this was a piece that I cut out of another piece of metal bed frame. Earlier on in you know, I was doing some welding for folks, and they would pay me in in metal bed frames, because there's a lot of decent steel in metal bed frames, and now I have a surplus now of metal bed frames that they'll cut up into random strips and weld together and make various things out of it. But it's a good, you know, it's a good source of cheap steel. You can usually run by you can run by like the thrift stores and stuff like that, and you don't want to buy, you know, a good metal bed frame, you know, for welding, you know, because you're then denying somebody that might really need that metal bed frame at those cheap prices. But if you're nice to them and you ask, they generally always got some bent ones or some ones that are missing a piece that they'll let you have for next to nothing, right? So I always throw some money into the donations jar, and you know, and I get 2 or 3 metal bed frames. Since then, like since everybody's found out that I was looking for metal bed frames, all my friends have hooked me up, and now I have a giant pile of metal bed frames rusting away in the backyard, waiting on some random future project, right? So yeah, so there. But it's, you know, it's nice having this big thick steel plate. Like I said, it adds a lot of weight. It dampens it cuts down on some of the vibration at the point of sharpening. I don't know if that improves the edge or anything, but it does make it more enjoyable to use, right? And then being steel, my angle cube will stick right to it, and I don't have to worry about knocking it off my desk and breaking it, you know. So you know, it's nice. It keeps it right there. It keeps all the schmutz and the sharpening slurry and stuff up here, and off my workbench, because you don't want that stuff working its way into mechanical parts, you know, knife pivots and stuff, because it'll grind it away, and it keeps everything that I kind of need at hand, right? So yeah, not a you know, I guess if I wanted a bigger, heavier sharpening setup, I could have went with the KO3. I just thought that the KO3 was a bit much for what I needed. It was a bit more than I needed for my usage. Plus, I liked how quick and easy and convenient the stone thickness compensating was on this setup. So there. Plus, it was a couple $100 cheaper, and I figured I could put that price difference, I could put that money into some more stones. So just going over my stones real quick. So I have the basic TS Prof diamond plate set, okay, and I believe it goes from 150 grit all the way up to 1,000 grit, and they do a good job on their own, right? And they do a good working finish, and for the price, man, you know, you can't beat them. I think it's crap. I think it was like $50 for the 5 plates. These have got 100 knives on them, you know, and they're still going strong. So they do a good job. What I did do though for that first heavy initial bevel set, so in order not to kill my 150 stone, I did buy a Vinev diamond and 150. So it is 150 grit Vinev diamond, and so that way all my super heavy duty grinding that I'm going to do with these is on this stone, and then that way it takes the pressure off my plate set here. So very good stone. I think it's like $40, $50. I get most of my individual stones and stuff. I get them from a company called Gritomatic. Fantastic company, good service, quick shipping. I never had an issue with them. One time I did order a stone that did happen to be damaged, and they didn't have any more in stock. The guy was awesome, man. Did an exchange for a slightly upgraded stone. Didn't charge me the difference, and yeah. So I've had really good experiences with them. Now, as far as polishing goes, after I hit that 1,000 grit, myself, I prefer the much harder natural stones. So to me, I think I like the feel of them. Like I can feel when I've gotten them scratches out, and it starts to get a bit smoother, and I know I've worked the stone as much as I need to, and I can move on to the next higher grit. But I really like the harder natural stones. I guess a lot of people know them as Arkansas stones. They can be oiled, or they're a splash and go stone. You know, squirt a little soapy water on them and go. You don't have to soak them in a pond or anything like that. You know, to get really good performance out of them, like you do with a lot of the aluminum oxide based man-made stones. They don't require very much soaking or any soaking at all. They don't build up much of a slurry, and they do clean up really well. They work really well. And so I go through 3 grits of those until I finish out at this gray polisher. I think the gray polisher was a 6500 grit. I'm nearly positive that was the final grit of this guy. I'm pretty sure that, or 8,000, something close to it. And then I go to my 2 strops, and for those I've got the Jant microfiber strops. I use 2 of them. It's not a form. I mean, they mark them on the side, so if you're using their diamond emulsion, then you know what diamond emulsion. I use Gunny juice. And so these are just kind of a rough guide, because I use a 3 micron and then a 1/4 micron. The thing with these guys though is there's a bit of smush, right? They're slightly mushy. The strops are, and what you'll find is that they drag a little bit differently over the blade, and you're gonna start wanting to bear down on them, and instead of getting a nice, you know, straight bevel down to the very edge, you're going to actually kind of starting to round it off, and you'll be struggling trying to figure out why your knives aren't getting sharp, right? You should be going, they were sharp before you started stropping, and they should be absolutely razor sharp after you strop them, right? And it's because it's just the way that those strops feel there in that guide. You kind of want to bear down on them, and that isn't any good for what you're doing. So what I did is I came up with this guy here. And what it is, it's just a piece of brass. It's a piece of 1-inch brass round, 1 inch long. Drilled a hole that's the same diameter as the rod straight through it. Drilled, well, there's 2 holes. We'll explain that second hole for in a second. Drilled the hole straight through it. Threaded it for a 1/4 20, and put a cool kind of big chunky 1/4 20 thumb screw on there. And how it works is you simply slide it on the back here. Tighten up your thumb screw so it doesn't fall off, and then there it acts as a counterbalance, and it kind of forces you to put a lighter touch on that strop when you're stropping the knife, and that's really the only purpose for it. I suppose you could use it for snow, you know, for helping to balance out some heavier stones or something too, if you're really wanting to do a fine polish with the natural stone and not strop it. I guess you could use it for that, but that, you know, that's what, $8 worth of Amazon junk, right, to put that together. The second hole you see in there is when I had found the correct drill for my 1/4 by 20 tap, and then I grabbed the drill 3 sizes up from it. So I thought the tap was spinning in pretty easy, you know, but no, that was me. It's a lightning cut, right? It makes it work faster. That's what it does. Right, so yeah, and then I've got these standard set of blade holders that came with the unit. They are of the KO3 pattern knife holders, so they're not compatible with the Blitz system, which is the next one down, which is the more portable folding type unit. But they are of like the KO3 holder style. What I have here is another product. This is from Gritomatic. It is a 3D printed adapter that allows you to use blade holders from another brand of sharpener. And the big advantage of that is Prof's frickin' blade holders, man, I think are priced way out of reality. To replace these guys, I think it's $115. It's ridiculous. A center holder style like I got on here right now. This is, you know, for a bit smaller blades, you know, because if you use just the holders, the closest you can get them together is about like that. So I have a center holder set up here, It allows me to get some smaller blades while still keeping it centered on the sharpener itself. But I mean, this setup right here with the holder, which I believe is for a Polish made sharpener, maybe. It's listed on their site. I'm not. A lot of these guys come from Russia and Poland and the Ukraine you'll never pronounce their names, okay, unless you're from there. But yeah. So this setup here, whereas the TS Prof setup like this was, I think last time I looked, it was about 100 and 150, and it always sold out, right? This was like 40 bucks, 45 bucks, you know. So not being a professional knife sharpener, I don't need the $150 setup, and I don't find there to be any disadvantages to using this setup right here. And it's not, the majority of my sharpening happens on these guys here. And so with what little I do the smaller knives, 40 bucks is 40 bucks. It's fine. It works, right? So yeah, I wasn't gonna spend extra money to get another fancy matching one here. This one works just fine. Another tool, I don't know really if it's an upgrade or whatnot. So you get a set of Allen wrenches, right? When you get the tool, one of them is to take some of the little small stuff apart, but the other one's the 4mm, and you'll kind of find that's the universal size for blade holders across the different types of knife the different brands of sharpening setups. The 4mm is kind of ubiquitous. I prefer not to use this style, but instead I've got instead I like to use a ball end handled driver instead of the Allen wrench. It's you don't want to strip these guys out, right? Because you're threaded into aluminum. You don't want to you don't really want to grunt down on them. I find the standard drivers, because to be a bit more torque limiting, you can't really gorilla them in. Plus, depending on how big the blade is, sometimes it can be hard to get up and over it to get these bolts tightened down. And so having a ball end one allows you to kind of get off at an angle there to tighten up, and it's just a bit more convenient. And when I'm using the sharpener, I usually throw it here back in the back holder, but it will get in the way of the stone guide, and that's really just meant to hold the stone guide when I'm putting the unit away. So yeah, but it's a decent tool to have. You can I think Gritomatic has a fancy like RC car-ish looking tool with an aluminum handle, but I think that set on Amazon was like 12 bucks. It's a good American made brand, and I find them to be pretty accurate and pretty tight, and not gonna goober up the screws, right? Because obviously you guys right, my fetish with hardware, right, and keeping it looking good. So I'm not gonna do any sharpening, right? Because sharpening's my time, and that's it probably I do it to relax, so it's not really riveting content. I think you guys would get tired of watching it pretty darn quick. I really just want to do a quick video here, just talk about my sharpening setups. This by far is not the only thing I use to sharpen knives. I also have a work sharp, which is an electrical sharpener. I don't use the pull-through attachment on it for the same reason I don't use the Edge Pro anymore, and that's because it's plastic, and since you're dragging your knife against it, you're gonna scratch your knife up. Well, excuse me. You're gonna scratch the hell out of your knife. It's fine for your mother-in-law's kitchen knives, right? If you got suckered into going over there and putting an edge on all of her stinking knives, right? I'll use the pull through. It's quick and easy. I'll get them done, and you'd never know. You'll never notice the extra 2 or 3 scratches I added to it. But for my knives, for my knives that I want to keep pretty, I prefer not to use the pull through. I got the Ken Onion edition, and I use the knife grinding attachment, and then I'll freehand grind them. It has a nice little angled edge guide where you can set the blade down. That's, you know, so you can feel the angle, and then you can bring the edge of the knife up to the belt. And I like using that, especially when I've got heavily damaged edges, a part, you know, edge that's rolled over some, or big nick in the blade, because grinding belts, right? These guys here, you know, grinding belts, grinding belts are cheap, right? And diamond stones are not, right? So I would much rather, chew up a belt or two than grind, than put any more wear on my stones than I have to, because yeah, belts are cheap. These guys aren't. Or really bad grind. I can use it to reset a bevel, something like that. And so it's pretty useful. It doesn't get a whole hell of a bunch of use for sharpening knives, because it removes too much steel too fast. So it only usually gets brought out in extreme cases. The other sharpener I'll employ on occasion is I do have the venerable SharpMaker from Spyderco, which in S30, and maybe some of their knives in S35, it does a fantastic job, right? If you're one of them people that you don't enjoy the process of sharpening, right? You just want to get it done, put a new edge on your knife and move on. You don't have any kind of edge repair that you got to do. SharpMaker is fantastic. For years and years and years, that was the only sharpener I had. Sharpened hundreds and hundreds of knives on the SharpMaker, and I've zero complaints about it. You can add a set of boron or diamond rods to it. They're a little expensive, right? I'll let you know up front. But then, if you got to do some super steels, having that, starting out with that boron or those diamond rods, they do a really good job of getting it right up to that right up to that point to where you can then polish the edge with the included 2 sets of ceramic rods. There's also an additional ultra fine set of rods, and I do use that one quite a bit because I do feel like those rods do put that nice final polish on the edge, and they do you can feel the difference in sharpness from using the basic 2 sets of rods that come with it, and then going one step further and using those ultra fine finish rods. They do an amazing job. Here, I'll pull 1 or 2 out here. Here's I believe that's so this is the fine, one of the fine rods that comes with the SharpMaker. There's it comes with a medium and a fine, and then you can also buy coarse and ultra fines. But these things also really come in handy too, is if you're breaking the edge, like the edge of some liners, or just even the spine on the blade. Kind of running that at an angle will just take off that little bit of razor sharp edge that's left on say the spine of the blade. And these are awesome for that. It's even got a groove in it, so I guess you could probably sharpen fish hooks in it or something. You can see how clean mine is. So obviously I haven't. But yeah, the Spyderco SharpMaker is a fantastic system, and and if that's the only sharpening setup you own, man, you'll be just fine and happy. Lansky makes one. There's quite a few. There's quite a few, cheap ones there on Amazon I've never heard of before. But there are plenty of reviews of stuff out there, and there's guys that'll swear by them. Because really what it comes down to, this is just a system that allows you to repeatedly set a sharpening angle, and then hold your blade, perpendicular to the stone surface, so you're not getting any side to side rocket, so that everything is squared up, right? And it's just so that you get a consistent edge every single time. There's also the people that want to keep their knives sharpened to whatever that factory edge is. If it was a 19-degree edge, they're going to keep it at 19. I find that, with the exception of some of the most expensive knives that I own, the factory edges are pretty inconsistent, and the factory angle is pretty inconsistent, especially when you get up towards the tips. So I always reprofile them, grind them down, get them down to either that 20 or that 17 degree, and then I just sharpen them there. this setup here, I haven't seen the Pro with the rack and pinion in person yet, but I would imagine it's probably a little bit easier. But just with this setup here, with me, with you loosening it up and then sliding it up and down here on the column, I get within a tenth of it, with a tenth of a degree, right? And all things being equal, this thing being bought on Amazon, not whatever the plus or minus, it's good too. It's only good plus or minus to about a tenth of a degree, anyways. I find that to be as accurate as you need this, right? It's not, we're not building parts for the space shuttle here, right? So a tenth of a degree is fine, and you'll be fine. This thing is more than repeatable to that tenth of a degree. Because when you get down to it, that's not much metal. So if you're having to, if you resharpen, when you're resharpening knives, you want to remove the least amount of metal possible to get that knife sharp. And in most instances, you want to try to remove almost no metal whatsoever, and hopefully you just have to restrop it, right? You don't have to do any serious grinding, because sharpening is removing metal from your knife, right? And you only have a finite amount of time so you can actually do that before you don't have any knife left, right? So you use, you remove the least amount of metal possible. And if you have any older kitchen knives in the drawer, you can hold that knife up and look, and you can see how far back towards the spine that bevel's moved. Kind of like your kind of like my hairline, right? It keeps receding towards the spine. Because you're removing metal when you sharpen that knife. So the point would be to remove as little metal as you physically can to get that knife sharpening. And I like to take my edges all the way down to polished. It's an aesthetics thing for me. It's not a performance thing, because honestly, having a polished edge can be kind of a pain in the ass, especially if you're cutting through stuff like tape, because the adhesive on the back of tape likes to stick better to a polished edge, as well as, like, if you're using it to cut vegetables, like something like a tomato or something, right? It likes to suction itself to that polished edge. I do it because it looks cool. So your results may vary, but to me, I think that nice polished edge is a sign of I don't know, somebody that knows what they're doing, I guess. But that's it is what it is. I like a polished edge. I think it looks good. So that's what I try to do. So yeah, I do have a couple big diamond plates for freehand sharpening, for really aggressively sharpening. Got a little moth here. Really aggressively sharpening the knife, but I really don't do much freehand sharpening anymore. There's some guys that are absolute masters at it. But it requires concentration. And when I'm doing this, I like to turn some music on, drink a beer and sharpen it without having to put too much thought into it. I usually, on a bigger knife, I can usually listen to the entire Pink Floyd's The Wall from beginning to end, while I'm sharpening the knife, and it's a relaxing, it's just a relaxing time for me. So I don't want to be standing over the sink using a stone bridge, or having a big pan of water here with all my Japanese, stones soaking. It's just too much of a pain in the ass for me to do it. These systems work really good. You get a fantastic edge with not a whole bunch of effort. They do have a little bit more of a learning curve, though, than you would assume, right? It's not going to turn you. These aren't going to turn you into an expert knife sharpener overnight. So don't grab one of these and then put the best knife you own on it, because I think you'll be setting yourself up for some disappointment there. But it isn't hard. It isn't tough. It's mechanical, right? You follow the instructions. You set it. You set your blade, and after your third or fourth try, you'll find you're not making those mistakes anymore, and then you get down to making some really, really pretty nice polished, sharp edges, right? Because that's the whole point of the knife, right? It's sharp. So yeah, So these are just some things that I added to make my sharpening more convenient for me. By no means do you need, a big 20-pound base to bolt your prof to. You don't need the, whatever 3 ounces of counterbalance weight on the end of it. These are all things that I added just to make my experience with this a little bit more convenient. This out of the box, this thing is absolutely miles ahead of any of the other sharpening systems I've been using. I love this thing is so much better than the Edge Pro was. This thing is miles above the Lansky system. And not that the Lansky system's bad, it's cheap, right? And if you get what you can afford. But I yeah, it's this is a much better system. In fact, I think if I was cheap was my goal, or not cheap, but maybe affordability, then it would just be the Spyderco. It would just be the SharpMaker. They can still be had for 50 or so bucks, and they all go into it goes into its own nice little carry box. It's convenient. It can be slipped into your junk drawer or whatever. It's a good system. But if you're going to be doing a bunch of knife sharpening, or you got some really expensive knives, and you want precision and repeatability, because a really bad sharpening job, you can really damage a knife and really detract from its value by not having a good sharpening setup, or by not knowing what you're doing. You always see it on the tip sections of the knife, on the very tips where they'll get rounded over a little bit, and there was some inexpert sharpening going on. But if it's a user, if it's your EDC knife, then whatever, who cares? It's your knife, right? You're going to be your own critic where that's concerned. But yeah, so usually I don't do much else on a sharpening day. I usually, because there's some setup and some cleanup of the bench, and to get everything out here. I usually do my sharpening the day before. I'll do my servicing, then I'll take my knife apart and run it through the sonic cleaner if it needs it, and oil it and put it back together. But yeah, this is my form of relaxation here, and I do wholeheartedly, if you are in the market for a sharpening setup, the TS Prof's a good system. I think these guys here, the Nero, I want to say going for about $350. They can still be had through TS Prof directly. They do have a U.S. based warehouse, so you're not doing that dreaded 2-month wait, to get something from Russia, via the postal service. But you get them in a couple of days. But yeah, if you just Google TS Prof, you'll find it on there. If you go into YouTube and type that TS Prof in there, you'll get a million different videos. I paid for mine, right? They weren't super impressed with my handful of, or at least impressed enough with my handful of subscribers to send me any pricey Russian sharpening system to shill, right? I paid for this with my own hard-earned money. So when I'm telling you I like it, it's based on my usage, not on my obligations to them for giving me a free product. So yeah, so it is a decent product. It's beautifully finished. It's beautifully made, and I wholeheartedly I do recommend it if you're looking for a system. So yeah, so I appreciate you coming on with this short video. I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised when I go back to rewatch it and see that the audio is a lot more improved. But yeah, so here shortly, next couple of days, we'll start doing some videos on some Spydercos. I know times are getting a little tough out there, and money's getting a little tighter. So if you keeping this addiction fed, right, you're gonna have to make some smarter knife choices out there, right? I just recently went through a whole big ordeal with a very expensive knife and getting it returned, which everything worked out, which everything was great. But it's, it's delayed the you know, with the whole returning it and getting the money refunded and everything. It's drawn the process out so long, you know, that I'm kind of just over it now, and I'm going to move on. So maybe I'll hold off on my next big knife purchase for a while, and we'll go with I did get a hold of of a uh, a particular Spyderco that's generally out of stock all the time, because it's a fairly popular Spyderco, but not made in super huge batches. And hopefully I'll have that here in a week or so. And we'll do what I do with all my Spydercos, right? Is I put new scales on them and pocket clips and you know, screws sometimes, and we'll do some anodizing, and sometimes we'll acid wash the blades. But Spydercos, we'll go over some Spydercos maybe the next couple of videos. They're a great knife in that they're extremely high quality, right, for the money you pay. They're an American made for a portion of them. There's actually, Spyderco has 3 separate factories. They have the Golden, Colorado factory, which makes a lot of their G10 scaled mid-priced, like your PM2s, PM3s. Those are all come from the Golden, Colorado factory. Your Delicas, the classic nylon handled ones, those still come from Seki, Japan. And then your higher end, you know, designer line ones, I guess you could say, those come from Taichung, Taiwan, and those are super high quality knives. Usually a little bit on the higher end as far as prices go, but they're super good knives. But Spyderco is a fantastic American company. They've been around for years. I love their knives, and they're very personalizable, I guess, if that's the word. You can definitely make those knives yours. There's a billion cajillion companies out there that are making scales and hardware and clips, and you can really customize those knives. And I've got some that are just lightly customized, and I've got some that I went, you know, whole hog, you know, customization on them, and then in the end you end up with a pretty goddamn expensive knife because of all the extras you got on there. But we'll go over some of those, and we'll go over some of the you know, in the next few videos, or you know, some of the options out there, and some of the things that you can do, and some of the customizations you can do. And then hopefully I'll have my my new Spyderco here shortly, within a week, and then we'll do a video upgrading that. You know, we'll do a full tear down and a full customization of it. So I haven't completely figured out exactly what I want to do with it yet, and which direction I want to go. But hopefully by the time we go and get that video, you know, by the time I get everything together for it, I'll have locked that down, man, and we'll do some. We'll make it uniquely ours, right? So, but yeah, appreciate you guys coming along with me tonight, and yeah, going into the weekend, I hope you all enjoy it. I know here it's going to be hot, because that's pretty much that's the easy prediction, right? Here it's going to be hot, but yeah, you know, this is the regular knife guy, right? And signing off.